Tonight, your brain is going to do something that in any other context would put you in a hospital. It will sever the connection to your eyes and ears. It will send a signal down your spinal cord that paralyzes nearly every muscle in your body. And then, it will generate a complete, vivid, sensory-rich false reality, populate it with people who do not exist, and convince you, totally, without a flicker of doubt, that it is real. You will do this for roughly 2 hours. You will do it tonight, tomorrow night, and every night. You have done it every night of your life. We call it dreaming, and we treat it as ordinary. It is not ordinary. It is the strangest thing your brain does, and after more than a century of research, we still cannot fully explain why. Let us start with what is actually happening, because the mechanics are already remarkable. Sleep runs in cycles of roughly 90 minutes. The vivid dreams cluster in a stage called REM, rapid eye movement, named for exactly what it sounds like. Your eyes dart around beneath closed lids. During REM, your brain is not resting. Measured by electrical activity and metabolic rate, it is running at close to waking levels. Some regions run hotter than they do when you are awake. The visual and emotional centers light up. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for logic, self-monitoring, and noticing that something is wrong, goes comparatively quiet. That single detail explains almost everything about the texture of dreams. Why you accept without hesitation that your childhood home has a room you have never seen. Why you are late for an exam in a subject you never studied and the response is panic rather than confusion. The part of your brain whose job is to raise an objection has largely clocked out. And then there is the paralysis. During REM, your brainstem actively suppresses motor neurons. This is called REM atonia, and it is a safety mechanism. Your motor cortex is issuing commands, run, reach, speak, and the atonia intercepts them before they reach your muscles. You are being restrained from acting out your own dream. We know what happens when this fails. In REM sleep behavior disorder, the atonia breaks down and people physically enact their dreams, swinging, running, sometimes injuring themselves or a partner. The system exists because it is necessary. So, your brain builds a false world, disables the faculty that would question it, and physically restrains you so you cannot participate. That is an enormous amount of biological machinery. Evolution does not build machinery that elaborate for no reason, which brings us to the question, why? Theory 1. The brain is filing the day. The memory consolidation account holds that sleep is when experience gets sorted, transferred from temporary storage in the hippocampus into long-term storage in the cortex, with the important material strengthened and the noise discarded. The evidence here is strong. Learn a task, then sleep, and you perform better afterward than someone who stayed awake the same number of hours. This holds across motor skills, vocabulary, and problem-solving. Researchers have recorded neurons in sleeping animals replaying the same firing sequences they produced while running a maze earlier that day, sometimes at accelerated speed. The brain is demonstrably rehearsing, but there is a gap in this theory, and it is a large one. If dreams were memory filing, dreams should look like memories. They do not. You rarely dream an accurate replay of your day. You dream a distorted, recombined, frequently impossible version. Your co-worker in your grandmother's kitchen, a building that becomes a boat. If the function were faithful storage, the distortion is not just unnecessary, it is counterproductive. Something else is going on. Theory 2. It is a rehearsal range. Finnish neuroscientist Antti Revonsuo proposed the threat simulation theory. Dreams are an evolved training simulator, a space to practice detecting and escaping danger at zero physical cost. The ancestor who rehearsed the predator encounter 1,000 times while unconscious had an advantage over the one who met it, cold. Revonsuo and Katja Valli tested this by analyzing dream reports systematically. 592 dreams from 52 subjects, scored with a rating scale built to quantify threatening events. Threatening content turned up far more often than chance, and the threats skewed toward realistic ancestral dangers, pursuit, aggression, falling, injury. You can feel the plausibility of this. Being chased is close to a universal dream. So is falling. So is losing your teeth, which shows up across cultures with striking consistency. But this theory has a gap, too. It explains the frightening dreams well. It has much less to say about dreaming that you are calmly reorganizing a bookshelf or having a mundane conversation with a stranger. A threat simulator that spends much of its runtime on non-threats is not a well-designed threat simulator. Theory 3, and this is the one I find genuinely difficult to stop thinking about, arrived from machine learning. In 2021, neuroscientist Eric Hole published the overfitted brain hypothesis in the Cell Press journal Patterns. The argument begins with a problem that anyone who has trained a neural network knows intimately: overfitting. Train a network on a dataset for long enough, and it stops learning the underlying pattern and starts memorizing the specific examples. It becomes superb at the training data and useless on anything new. It has learned the answers instead of the subject. Engineers solve this by deliberately corrupting the training process. They inject noise. They distort images, drop out random neurons, feed the system data that is warped or wrong. It sounds like sabotage. It works. Corruption forces the network to find the general rule instead of memorizing the specific case. Hole's proposal is that your brain faces exactly this problem. You spend every day training on a narrow, repetitive dataset, the same commute, the same rooms, the same faces. A learning system-fed input that consistent should overfit badly. It should become excellent at your specific Tuesday and poor at anything unfamiliar. So every night the brain generates corrupted data, warped, recombined, impossible sensory input. Not despite being strange, because being strange is the mechanism. Under this hypothesis, the bizarreness of dreams is not a byproduct or a rendering error. It is the active ingredient. A dream that made perfect sense would be a training example you already have. It would teach you nothing. Sit with the implication. The reason you dreamed about your dentist piloting a submarine is that a brain fed nothing but plausible input becomes brittle. The nonsense is a feature. It is your nervous system's defense against becoming too good at a world that is about to change. Hole put forward testable predictions in living brains and in simulated ones, which is what separates a hypothesis from a story. It is not settled. It is being examined. And here is the honest position, which is more interesting than pretending we have this solved. These three theories are not necessarily competing. Sleep is not one process. It has stages, each with a distinct neurochemical signature. It is entirely possible that consolidation, threat rehearsal, and generalization are all happening at different times in different stages, serving different functions that we are currently trying to describe with a single word. And there is a deeper problem underneath all of it. Every theory here explains what dreaming does. Not one explains why it is experienced. Your brain could perform memory consolidation without generating the felt sensation of standing in a room. It could run threat simulations without you being there to be afraid. It could inject noise into its own learning process silently, mechanically, in the dark. Instead, there is something it is like to dream. A perspective. A someone inside it. Every night, unconscious and paralyzed and cut off from the world, your brain builds a place and puts you in it. We can measure the electrical activity. We can track the neurons replaying. We can score the dream reports and test the predictions. We cannot yet explain why any of it should feel like anything at all. Sleep well.